Black people are selling us out. 6 types of sellouts in the black community: racism, inequality, slavery. 3 terms the black community is all too familiar with. Our ancestors fought for our generations, years of working as slaves for the white man, fighting for freedom, and finally, they were able to reach their goal. Slavery was abolished. Later, black people got the right to vote, and we became more integrated in society. Truth is, we still got a long way to go. Racism is all around us, even in 2025. But there's one thing that our community often overlooks, or rather, don't want to admit: internal sellouts. Black people turning on each other for the promise of money, power, or fame. Our own people use us as bait to climb the ladder, become famous, or to receive help, only when their black identity seems convenient to them. Today, we're taking a deep dive into black sellouts. We're touching on that very sensitive topic that so many black people try to avoid. I'll tell you more about different types of sellouts and how they damage our culture and rip tears in black history itself. When we talk about racism and unfair treatment against black people, let's face it, we point fingers to white people, and for good reason. They've made our people suffer. Look back at the 1800s and earlier. Blacks weren't considered people. We were the property of whites. Our precious generations had to work as slaves. Fast forward to today, we've gained more freedom, but new problems have been brewing in black communities. This leads to internal sellouts, and it's actually not a new concept. Even during times of hardship for our people, blacks decided to sell out their own people for different reasons, from the false promise of becoming a free man to getting fame amongst the white people. In this video, I want to tell you about 6 of the most common sellouts that not only existed over 100 years ago, but continue to manifest in the modern day. It's time we talk about this, bring it to the attention of the black community, and take action.
Smiling in the company brochure, he laughs when racist jokes fly in the boardroom, because rocking the boat might cost his promotion.
The corporate climber, the black person who decides to completely suppress their identity, throw away what they represent in our community, just to fit in with the corporate ladder and attempt to climb it to the top. Now, don't get me wrong, it's time black people come to power in corporate environments. However, there's definitely a better way of doing it than pushing yourself into white corporates, trying to fit in with these people who oppose our culture, and using this as your entry to better positions in the workplace. The main issue with becoming part of the white corporate space is that black people often leave behind their heritage. They also stay silent in cases where racism is obvious within these spaces. This is where the problem comes in. You have a black person climbing the corporate ladder. They hear and see how racism is used to exclude other black people from better positions. They see firsthand how white corporate spaces are undermining the abilities of black people within the corporate world. Yet, they do nothing about it. They don't say anything. This black person has already climbed the ladder. They're already reaching for the top. When this happens, that black person in the white corporate space is selling out their own people. They're sitting in silence, seeing what happens, and they won't risk their position in order to create justice for people in their own community.
Force, to help the women.
I feel like you can really speak from a unique perspective because you've been in there and you've seen where they are and where they're going.
In the 1970s, there was the Black Mafia, nested in Philadelphia. When one of the inner circle members decided to cooperate with authorities, it brought the entire mafia to its knees. This betrayal from within caused the arrest of several leaders in the Black Mafia. While there are different opinions as to the black person's motive, many agree that he likely had some financial gain and a reduced sentence promised by white authorities. In the same time period, the Black Spades, who were a gang located in New York, became unstable and eventually broke up into smaller groups due to internal betrayals.
The Black Spades was a mostly black street gang started in the Bronx in 1968. Their formation was created to create solidarity and protection at the time, marked by the poverty that was going on in the Bronx and the racial tension. African Bambaataa, who created the Zulu Nation, and DJ Kool Herc, 2 hip-hop pioneers, were both members. They were the biggest black collective in New York at the time, and they were originally known as the Savage Seven before they changed into the Black Spades. Now, the way it started was like a lot of typical gangs in rough neighborhoods, and it was to protect their neighborhood from people that would come in, rob people, stab people, those type of things. The Black Spades were at the center of the birth of hip hop. Their parties were the start of what every club in America plays now. They merged with another group called the Ghetto Brothers. We're going to talk about them too. And it was a famous event. It signified unification in the Bronx, killing.
Several members of the Black Spades decided to work with authorities, and the aim was to gain power over their own people. These black people turned on their own culture and community and cooperated with whites for the promise of greater power, influence, and riches. These are classic examples of sellouts that happen within black gangs. As leaders or even regular members become power hungry, they lose sight of their own community. They turn against each other, their own people, selling them out to climb the ranks in the gang, gain more control over operations, and to cash in during the process. Even black gang leaders turn on their own kind for the promise of money. Take Earl Anthony as an example. He became an early leader in the Black Panther Party, but in reality, this leadership role in a black gang was only a front. He was actually an FBI informant who was paid to turn on his own people and feed information to the FBI, selling out members of the Black Panther Party in the process. Hollywood remains an industry dominated by white men. We see black people like The Rock, Kevin Hart, and Snoop Dogg rise through the ranks and make names for themselves. But let's face it, systemic racism against black people remains a problem. And then we have those black actors who would turn on their own kind in order to reach for fame and fortune in Hollywood.
Told the world that our ancestors chose to be kidnapped from Africa, chose to be chained in slave ships, chose to be beaten, assaulted, and systematically subdued for 4 centuries. You know what that was? That was Kanye telling white people.
Take Lincoln Perry as an example. Many would agree that this man was the first black to become a movie star. He was intelligent and considered a businessman. But the question is, how did he succeed? By portraying his own people as slow and lazy. He used harmful tropes to entertain white people, further pushing for acceptance of the stereotype that has been linked to the black community, just so that he could feel famous. Burt Williams and even Tyler Perry are also great examples. While we love a good Madea comedy, we have to look beyond the screen and talk about what's really going on. Black actors are portraying people of their own community in a stereotypical way, and this often goes out to a white audience. This reinforces an acceptance of the stereotypes whites have associated with our people for a long time. In the modern day, the black community also has a problem with gatekeepers. Let's call them the mouthpieces of media. I'm referring to black people who would turn on their own people in order to justify stereotyping and oppression, in order to seem cool or to fit in with white society. In reality, this actually has some similarities to what we see with corporate ladders. However, these gatekeepers might not be interested in the corporate world, but rather in becoming famous or financially gaining by exploiting black people for the media. We've seen black people portray themselves in blackface. When blackface is represented by a black voice and black people, that's something that just further validates the way whites have stereotyped our people. Over the years, there have also been problems with the fact that some black people decide to contribute to the current self-oppression issue we see. Black people would blame their own community for oppression and struggles, creating a cycle that influences young blacks in our culture. This instills hatred of oneself and one's own people. They do this in order to turn propaganda and false information into paychecks, even if this means turning on their own people. Then there's the political pawn. We've seen black people enter politics. In fact, our community made a massive achievement when certain black people are in charge. But we need to consider other black people in politics as well. Similar to the corporate climber, we can see black people enter politics and try to blend in with their white counterparts, instead of being proud of their own heritage. These black people often rule in favor of the whites in order to achieve a greater reputation within politics. But the problem is, this often comes at the expense of their own people. One type of sellout in black communities that usually goes underreported or not even reported at all involves scams within the community itself. In fact, young black people in America are exploiting older individuals in their own communities. Senior black Americans have become a target of scams, often cited due to the higher prevalence of Alzheimer's disease, as well as problems with financial literacy. A lack of response from the police is also a problem here, as police have been found to turn black people away when they are scammed by others in their community. Almost 1,000 cases of elder fraud in predominantly black neighborhoods have been recorded over a period of 2 decades. However, researchers say that this is likely only a small number of actual cases, with many of these scams going unreported. Once again, we see how black people would make their own people victims of their scams. This problem isn't isolated to black Americans. We see this around the world. In 2020, a black pastor was arrested in South Africa for scamming other black people in his own community. He used the trust he built within his church and the black community surrounding him in order to exploit these people. He promised investors who paid a certain amount to join his investment scheme a 14% return, then ended up disappearing with everyone's money. He was caught, but it's still really sad to see how black people who gained the trust of their community would exploit their position for money. We have a rich history as black people. Our people have proven over and over that we can achieve the goals we set out for, from getting slavery abolished to enforcing our rights to be seen as human citizens. Yet, even after all this progress, we have traitors in our own community selling out their people to get fame, to get rich, and to climb corporate ladders. The black community needs to come together and recognize these flaws that are hurting the progress we've made. We need to stand together as a culture, instead of selling each other out with false promises from white people who were the ones to oppose us in the first place. What are your thoughts on black people selling each other out? Which one touches you the most? And are there any other types of sellouts you can think of? Be sure to leave a comment so that we can discuss this topic more. And as always, share the video if someone you know might find it helpful. Leave a like if you enjoy the content, and subscribe if you're not part of the movement yet.